Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're tackling something that literally underpins every single digital interaction you have. We rely on this invisible system of trust every time we unlock our phones, check our bank balance, or send a quick private message. But the source material we're unpacking today, it presents an absolutely explosive premise about our digital security. We are looking directly at the quantum threat to global cryptography. And we're not talking about some minor software bug or a simple glitch here. No, we're looking at a massive paradigm shift, an impending transformation that threatens the very foundation of how we keep information secret in the modern age. To really grasp the sheer gravity of this, just consider this exact premise from our source text: quantum computing, why it will break every password on Earth. I mean, just let the absolute finality of that sentence sink in for a second. It doesn't say some passwords, it doesn't just say weak passwords. The authors of our source material have framed this not as some distant, far-off sci-fi scenario, but as a literal ticking time bomb. This quote is the ultimate hook, right? Because it takes this highly complex, almost invisible technological concept and it connects it directly to the most universal security measure that you and I use every single day. And, well, that brings us to a really uncomfortable realization about the illusion of safety. Right now, our entire digital lives are built on this cozy feeling of security. You type in your 8-character password, maybe throw in a special symbol or a number, you see that little padlock icon in your web browser, and you feel safe. But the source material is effectively telling us that this current state of digital security is just a deeply fragile illusion. We're being prepared to understand a threat on a massive scale, a scale that makes those padlocks and passcodes entirely obsolete. It's like we're standing inside a heavy fortress, but the walls are about to become completely transparent. Which naturally leads us to the single most important question we can ask right now. How exactly does a computer break every password? I mean, it's one thing to hear about the threat, it's another to understand the actual mechanics behind it. We all know traditional hackers steal credentials through phishing emails or data leaks, but the source text isn't talking about human error here. It's talking about a technological capability that actively shatters the system itself. So to really understand this threat, we have to pivot our focus from the what to the why. Why is this new type of machine so incredibly dangerous to our current way of life?
Now, what's really interesting about this is how we define the core of the issue, based purely on the context provided by our source. Quantum computing isn't just, a faster version of the laptop sitting on your desk. It is an unprecedented technological force capable of completely overpowering our current protections. And here's why. Traditional computers process information linearly, as ones and zeros, but quantum computers use quantum bits, or qubits, which can actually exist as both a 1 and a 0 simultaneously. This means instead of trying combinations one at a time, a quantum computer can process vast, incredibly complex mathematical problems exponentially, and all at once. So this isn't traditional hacking where someone guesses millions of times until they get lucky. This is a fundamental change in the laws of computation. It's a force so profoundly powerful that the mathematical locks currently guarding our digital doors simply won't have the strength to resist it. When we look at traditional computing, our current passwords actually work because those machines have strict speed limits. It would take them thousands, sometimes millions of years to guess the complex mathematical equations protecting your data. The math is just too heavy to lift. But quantum computing power, it bypasses those traditional limits entirely because it can calculate so incredibly fast by running simultaneous equations, it doesn't guess passwords one by one. It has the overwhelming capability to crack the underlying mathematics almost instantly. It's literally the difference between trying to pick a heavy steel lock with a tiny toothpick versus just melting the lock entirely. And this massive technological shift ultimately zeroes in on a deeply personal impact. The source doesn't just talk about breaking encryption in some abstract theoretical sense. It explicitly focuses on the breaking of every password on Earth. That specific language is intentional. It takes this highly esoteric concept of quantum physics and places it squarely in your living room, right on your phone, and in your daily routine. It means your personal, intimate data is directly in the crosshairs of this global technological leap. Let's think about what that actually means. This threat encompasses your personal banking, literally everything you've saved and earned. It targets your private emails, which hold your most intimate communications and professional secrets. It extends to your social media, your public identity, and even your healthcare records, your most sensitive, private, physical data. Every single one of these foundational pillars of your modern life is currently guarded by a simple string of characters. When you detail it out like that, the abstract science suddenly feels incredibly urgent, right? It's a complete exposure of our digital selves. And just in case there's any ambiguity left, the number is 100%. The source text says every account. It doesn't say most, it doesn't say the weak passwords, it says every single one. That means 100% of this type of security is implicated by this claim. The absolute scale of this vulnerability is staggering. We are talking about a scenario with zero exceptions. It really reinforces the idea that you can't simply make your passphrase longer or more complicated to hide from this threat. The underlying technology that makes those passwords work is what's fundamentally broken. So, having looked at our personal risk, we now have to zoom out to the architecture of the internet itself. Global cryptography is at risk. We are moving from the individual user right up to the systemic foundation of the modern world. The title of our source material specifically warns of a threat to global cryptography. Those logins you type in every day, they're just the frontline soldiers. Cryptography is the entire defense strategy holding up the digital economy. If a quantum computer can break the front line, it means the overarching strategy is collapsing entirely.
So, the crucial point is understanding what exactly is at stake on a global scale here. Global cryptography is the invisible, overarching mathematical shield currently protecting all worldwide digital infrastructure. Every single time a stock trade is made, every time a power grid communicates, every time nations share intelligence, it is all wrapped up in this mathematical shield. Our source isn't just predicting a bad day for IT departments, it's pointing to the potential failure of the very fabric of our digital civilization. Whether it's global banking, highly classified government communications, or our physical infrastructure like power grids and water supplies, they all rely on the exact same cryptographic defenses. The mathematical principles that protect your personal email are at the very core of protecting national security. And in the face of quantum computing, every single one of those systems is equally vulnerable. The threat extends infinitely beyond our personal devices and puts entire global systems on the brink, completely bypassing the firewalls we've trusted for decades. And this brilliantly illustrates the core dynamic of the crisis. The imbalance in resilience is overwhelming. It's practically David versus Goliath, except in this scenario, David's slingshot doesn't even make a dent in the new armor. We're facing a towering threat level that completely dwarfs our current defensive capabilities. This impending collision between the defenses we've relied on for decades and the sheer, unstoppable force of the quantum threat described in our source text, it's just unlike anything we've ever seen before. Which brings us to the core takeaway from today's explainer, an inevitable collision. The phrasing in the source is absolutely definitive. It doesn't say this technology might break our security. It doesn't say it could. It says it will. We're not discussing a mere possibility or a fun theoretical concept here. We are looking at a direct and inevitable threat to the foundations of our digital world. The collision between current security measures and quantum capability is already on the calendar. The only question left is how fast the clock is ticking.
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to consider as you log into your accounts today. Is your data safe in a post-quantum world? We've built an entire civilization on the premise of digital secrecy, relying on basic character strings and complex cryptography. But if the source we unpack today holds true, that foundational premise is living on borrowed time. It challenges all of us, from the everyday user all the way up to global leaders, to completely rethink